carefully, Helen. The children mustn't see it until this evening when it is dressed.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that my little skylark twittering in there?
Yes, it is.
Is that my squirrel bustling about?
Yes.
When did my squirrel get home?
Just now. Torvald, come in here and see the things I have bought.
Don't disturb me. Bought, did you say? All of these things? Has my little spendthrift been wasting money again?
Yes, but this year we may spend a bit more than usual. This is the first Christmas we have not needed to economize.
Still, you know we can't spend money recklessly.
Yes, but this year we may be a bit more reckless, mayn't we? Just a tiny wee bit. You are soon going to have a big salary and earn lots of commissions.
Yes, but not until the new quarter. Then it'll be until the new year, until the salary is due.
Well, we can borrow till then.
Nora, the same little featherhead. Suppose now that I borrowed $100 that you spend it all on the Christmas week, and on New Year's Eve a slate fell on my head and killed me.
Oh, don't say such horrible things.
Still, suppose that happened. What then?
Well, if that should happen, I don't suppose I should care whether I owed money or not.
Yes, but what about those who had lent it?
Who they? Well, who should bother about them? I should not know who they were.
That is like a woman. But seriously, Nora, you know what I think about that? No debt, no borrowing. There can be no freedom or beauty about a home life that depends on borrowing and debt. We two have kept bravely on the straight road thus far and will continue to do so as long as there need be any struggle.
As you please, Torvald.
Come, come. My little skylark must not droop her wings. What do you think I've got here?
Money?
Don't you think I know what an awful lot is wanted for housekeeping at Christmas time?
$15? Thank you, Torvald. This will keep me going for a long time.
Indeed it must.
Of course it shall. But come here and see the things that I have bought, and all so cheap. I've gotten a new suit for Ivar, and a sword, and there's a new sled for Bob, and a doll for Emmy. Well, it is very plain, but that is all at once. She will soon break it into pieces. And I've got the new dresslings and the handkerchiefs for the maids. Old Anne really ought to have something better.
And what is in this parcel?
No. You mustn't see that until this evening.
Very well. But tell me, what would you like for yourself?
For myself? Well, I don't suppose I should want anything.
Yes, but you must. Tell me something reasonable that you would particularly like to have.
No, I can't think of anything. Unless, Torvald.
Well?
Well, if you really want to get me something, you might...
Well, out with it.
You might give me money, only just as much as you can afford, and then I shall think of something I should like to buy with it.
But Nora,
Do as I say, and then I shall wrap it in beautiful gilt paper and hang it on the Christmas tree. Won't that be fun?
What do little people called that are always wasting money?
Spendthrift. I know, but let us do as I suggest, and then I shall be able to save it up and think what I am most in want of. That is a very sensible plan, isn't it?
Indeed it is. That is to say, if you were really to save out of the money I give you and then buy yourself something with it. But if you spend it on housekeeping and other such unnecessary things, I merely have to pay up again.
But Torvald.
You can't deny it, Nora. It's a sweet little spendthrift. She uses up a deal of money.
You really shouldn't tease me about that. I really do save all I can.
Yes, but you can't save anything.
You haven't any idea how many expenses we skylarks and squirrels have, Torvald.
You're an odd little soul. Very like your father. You always find new ways of wheedling money out of me, and once you have got it, it seems to melt in your hands. You don't know where it has gone. But still, one must take you as you are. For it can't be in the blood, Nora, for indeed one can inherit these things.
I wish I had inherited many of Papa's qualities.
And I would not want you to be anything but just as you are. My sweet little Skylar. But you know, it strikes me that you're looking rather, what shall I say, rather uneasy today.
Do I?
Yes, you do. Look straight at me.
Well,
Hasn't Miss Sweet Tooth been in town breaking rules today?
no.
Not been at the confectioner's?
No, certainly
Not been nibbling sweets?
No, I assure
Not even a bite of a macaroon or
Certainly
two?
not.
There. I was only joking.
I should not think of going against your wishes.
Of course. Besides, you gave me your word. Very well. Keep your Christmas secrets to yourself. They shall all be revealed tonight when the Christmas tree is lit, no doubt.
Did you remember to invite Dr. Red?
No, but as a matter of course, he will come to dinner with us. I will tell him when he comes in this morning. I've ordered some good champagne, Nora. You can't think how I'm looking forward to this evening.
So am I. And how the children will enjoy themselves.
It is splendid to think that one has a perfectly safe appointment and a big enough income. It's delightful to think of, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
Do you remember last Christmas, when you locked yourself up for 3 weeks making surprises and ornaments for the children? They were the dullest 3 weeks I ever spent.
I didn't find it dull.
But there is precious little results, Nora.
Oh, you really shouldn't tease me about that again. How could I help the cats going in and tearing everything to pieces?
Of course you couldn't, you poor little girl. You had the best of intentions to please us all, and that's the main thing. But it is a good thing our hard times are over.
Yes, it really is wonderful.
This time I needn't sit here and be dull all alone, and you needn't ruin your dear eyes and your pretty little hands.
No, I needn't any more, need I? Perfectly lovely to hear you say so. But here's how I think we ought to put things in order. As soon as Christmas is over. There is someone at the door. What a nuisance.
If it is a caller, remember I am not at home.
A lady to see you, ma'am. A stranger. Well, show her in. The doctor came in at the same time, sir.
Did he go straight into my room?
Yes, sir. Nora. How do you do? How do you do? You don't recognize me, I suppose. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I seem to. Christine! Oh, Christine, is that really you? Oh, my, to think of my not recognizing you. And yet, how could I? You are greatly altered, Christine. And it's been 9. No, 10 long years, dear, since we've seen each other. It's been so long since we met. Well, yes, I suppose it has. The last 8 years have been a happy time for me, I can tell you. So now you have come this long way, and have taken this journey in winter. That was plucky of you. I arrived by steamer this morning to have some fun at Christmas time, of course. Oh, Christine, what fun we will have together. But take your coat off. You are not cold, I hope. Well, yes, you would be. Now, we will sit here by the stove and be nice and warm and cozy. Here we are. You sit in this chair. I will sit in the other one. There. Well, now you look like your old self again, Christine. It was only at the first moment. You are a little paler, Christine, and perhaps a bit thinner, and much, much older, Nora. Perhaps a little older. Very, very little. Certainly not much. Oh, Christine, my dear, you must forgive me. Nora, what do you mean? Dear Christine, you are a widow. That was 3 years ago now. Yes, I knew. I read about it in the papers, and I meant ever so often to write to you, but something always prevented me. I quite understand, dear. Very bad of me. And he left you nothing? No. And no children? No. Nothing at all, then? Not even any sorrow or grief to live upon. Dear Christine, is that possible? It sometimes happens, dear. It must have been very sad for you. I have 3 lovely children. Well, you can't see them just now, for they're out with their nurse. But now you must tell me all about it. Nora, I want to hear about you first, dear. I mustn't be selfish today. I must only hear about your affairs. There is one thing I should dearly love to tell you, Christine. Do you know we have just had a great piece of good luck? No, I don't. What is it? Just a fancy. My husband is to be made manager of the bank. Your husband? Well, what good luck? It's tremendous. Well, the barrister's profession is such an uncertain one, especially if he won't undertake any unsavory cases. Naturally, Torvald has never been willing to do that. And I quite agree with him. He is to take his post in the new year, and then for the future we can live quite differently. We can do just as we like. You may imagine how pleased we are. Oh, Christine, won't it be wonderful to have exactly what one wants, and heaps of money? Nora, I think it would be delightful to have what one needs. Oh, no, not what one needs, but heaps and heaps of money. Nora, haven't you learned sense yet?
In our school days, you were quite a spendthrift, dear.
Yes, that's what Torvald says now. But Nora is not so silly as you might think. We've not been in a position to waste money. We've both had to work.
You too?
Yes. Well, odds and ends, needlework, crochet work, that sort of thing. And other things as well. You know, don't you, that Torvald left his office when we were married. There was no prospect of promotion there, and he had to try and earn more money than before. In the first year, he overworked himself dreadfully, and the doctors told us it was necessary for us to go south.
You spent a year in Italy, didn't you?
Yes. It was by no means easy for us to get away. It was just after my little Ivar was born. Naturally, we had to go. It was a wonderfully beautiful journey, and it saved Torvald's life, but it cost a great deal of money, Christine.
So I should think.
$2,500. That's a lot, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And in emergencies like that, it's lucky to have the money, Nora.
I ought to tell you that we had it from Papa.
Oh, I see. It was about that time that he died, wasn't it?
Yes. And just think, dear, I couldn't go and nurse him. I was expecting little Ivar's birth every day. And I had my poor sick Torvald to think about. My dear, kind father. I never saw him again.
I know how fond you were of him, dear. And then you went off to Italy?
Yes. Well, you see, we had money then, and the doctor said it was necessary, so we started a month later.
Did your husband come back quite well?
As sound as a bell.
But the doctor...
What doctor?
I thought your maid said that the gentleman who arrived here just as I did would...
Oh, yes, that was Dr. Rank, but he doesn't come here professionally. He is Torvald's dearest friend who comes here at least once every day. No, Torvald has not had an hour's illness since then. And my children are strong and healthy, and so am I. Oh, Christine, it is so good to be alive and happy.
Oh, dear. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Come here, sit down now. I want to talk about you. Is it true that you did not love your husband? Why did you marry him?
My mother was alive then, Nora, and was bedridden and helpless, and I had to provide for my two younger brothers, so I didn't think myself justified in refusing his offer.
No, I suppose you were right in doing so. He was rich at that time, then?
I believe so. But his business was a precarious one, and when he died, it all went to pieces, and there was nothing left.
And then?
I turned my hand to anything I could find. First a small school, and then a shop. Nora, the last 3 years of my life, it felt like one long working day with no rest. But now it's at an end. My mother needs me no more, she is gone. My brothers have got situations and can shift for themselves.
What a relief you must feel.
No, I don't feel it a relief. There's no one to live for anymore. I could not stand my life in the little backwater any longer. I hope it may be easier here to find something which will busy me and occupy my thoughts. Perhaps I could find some regular work. Office work of some kind.
Oh, Christine, that's so frightfully tiring. And you look tired out already. You had far better go to some watering place.
I don't have a father to give me the money for a journey, Nora.
Don't be angry with me.
No, dear. It's you that must not be angry with me. The worst of a position like mine is that it makes one bitter. There's no one to live for anymore, no one to work for. And yet I'm always obliged to be on the lookout for chances. When I heard the happy turn your fortunes have taken, I'll hardly believe it. I was happy not so much on your account as on my own.
Well, I don't understand. Oh, yes. I see, too. You mean, don't you, that perhaps Torvald could get you some work to do?
Yes, dear, that's what I was thinking.
Well, you must, dear. Will you just leave it to me? I will broach the subject very cleverly. I will think of something that will please him very much. Oh, Christine, it will make me so happy to be of some use to you.
You are kind, Nora, and very anxious to help me, but it's doubly kind of you because you know so little of the burdens and troubles of life, dear.
I?
I know so little of them. My dear. Small household cares and that sort of thing. You're a child, Nora.
You ought not to be so superior.
Oh, no, dear, I
You are just like the others. They all think that I am incapable of anything really serious, that I have been nothing in this world of care.
All right, you just told me all your troubles.
Pooh, those were trifles. I haven't told you the important thing.
The important thing. What do you mean?
You look down upon me altogether, Christine. But you ought not to. You are proud and glad, aren't you, of having worked so long and so hard for your mother?
I look down on no one. But it is true, I'm both proud and glad to think that I can make the end of my mother's life. Well, almost free from care.
And you are proud and glad, aren't you, of having worked so long and hard for your brothers?
I think I have the right to be.
I think so, too. But now, Christine, you will see that I, too, have something to be proud and glad of.
Oh, I have no doubt you have, but what do you refer to?
Suppose Torvald should hear you. You must, Christine, not for the world. No one must know except you.
Nora, what is it?
Now you will see that I, too, have something to be proud and glad of. It was I who saved Torvald's life.
Saved? How?
I told you about our trip to Italy. Torvald never would have recovered if we had not gone there.
Yes, but your father gave you the necessary funds.
That is what Torvald and the others think. But Papa didn't give us a penny. It was I who procured the money.
All that large sum.
$2,500.
Nora, how did you do it? Did you win it in the lottery?
In a lottery? There would have been no credit in that.
But how did you do it then?
Aha!
Oh, because you couldn't have borrowed.
Couldn't I? Why not?
A wife cannot borrow without her husband's
Oh, if
consent.
it is a wife who has any head for business, who has any wit to be a bit clever.
I don't understand it at all, Nora.
Oh, there is no need that you should. I never said I had borrowed the money. I might have got it in some other way. When anyone is as attractive as I am.
You're a mad creature.
Now, you know you are full of curiosity, Christine.
Nora, don't you think you've been a little bit imprudent?
Is it imprudent to save your husband's life?
Yes, it seems to me
It
imprudent,
was
but it's...
absolutely necessary that he should not know, Christine. Goodness, can't you understand that? It was to me the doctors came and said what a dangerous condition he was in, and the only way to save him was to live in the South. Well, don't you think I didn't try, first of all, to get the thing as if it were for myself? I told Torvald how much I should love to travel abroad like other young couples. I told him he ought to remember my condition and be kind and indulgent to me. I even hinted we might raise a loan. That really made him angry, Christine. He said I was thoughtless, and that it was his job as my husband not to indulge me in my whims and caprices, as I think he called them. Very well, I thought. You must be saved, and that is how I came to devise a way out of the difficulty.
Did your husband ever get to know from your father that the money didn't come from him?
No. Papa died just at that time. I had thought to let him into the secret and beg him never to tell anyone, but then there was no need to tell him.
Since then, you've never shared your secret.
With Torvald? Oh, no, how could you think so? A man who has such strong opinions on the subject. And how would it be for Torvald, with his manly independence, to discover that he owed me anything? It would upset our mutual relations altogether. Our beautiful, happy home would no longer be what it is now.
Do you mean never to tell him about it?
Yes. Someday, perhaps. Years from now, when I am no longer as good-looking as I am now. Don't laugh at me. I mean, of course, when Torvald is no longer as devoted to me as he is now. When my dancing and dressing up and reciting have all palled on him, then it may be good to have something in reserve. What am I saying? That will never happen. What do you think of my great secret now, Christine? Do you still think I am of no use? And I can tell you, too, it has by no means been easy for me to keep up with this matter. It has by no means been easy for me to meet my engagements punctually. There is a thing in business that is called quarterly interest, and another thing that is known as payment in installments. was always so dreadfully difficult to keep up with them. I've had to save a little here and there where I could, you understand. I have not been able to put aside much from my housekeeping money, for Torvald must have a good table, and I could not let my children be shabbily dressed. I have been obliged to put aside all he gave me for them, my sweet little darling.
So it has all had to come out of your necessaries of life. Poor Nora.
Of course. After all, I was the one responsible for it. Whenever Torvald has given me any money for dresses and such things, I have never spent more than half of it. I have always bought the simplest and cheapest things. Well, thank heaven any clothes look well on me, and so Torvald has never noticed it. But it is often very difficult because it is so nice to be really well dressed, isn't it?
Quite so, dear.
Well, then I have found other ways of earning money. Last winter, I was lucky enough to get a lot of copying to do. And I sat here until quite late at night. Many a time I was dreadfully tired, but all the same, it was wonderful to sit here earning money. It was like being a man.
How much have you been able to save in that way?
I can't tell you exactly. As I said, it is so difficult to keep up with a matter of this kind. I only know that I have saved just as much as I could. And then sometimes I used to sit here and imagine that a rich old gentleman had fallen in love with me.
What?
That he died, and that in his will contained the words, Mrs. Nora Helmer is to have all I possess paid over at once in cash.
Nora, look at this old man need.
And to understand, there really was no rich old gentleman at all. It was only something I used to imagine when I could think of no way of procuring money. Oh, but it is all the same now. The tiresome old person can stay where he is as far as I am concerned, for I am free from care now. Oh, Christine, what a wonderful thought. To be free from care, quite free from care, to be able to play and romp with my children, and to be able to keep this house just as Torvald likes it. And just think, Christine, the spring will come, and the big blue sky, and perhaps we shall go on a trip. Perhaps I shall see the sea again. It is so good to be alive and happy. There's the bell.
Perhaps I better go.
Oh, no, dear. It is sure to be for Torvald. They will not come in here. Please sit down.
Excuse me, ma'am. There is a gentleman to see the master, and as the doctor is with him.
Well, who is it?
It is I, Mrs. Helmer.
You. What do you want to see my husband about?
Bank business, in a way. I have a small post at the bank, and I hear your husband is to be our chief now.
Then it is...
Nothing but dry business matters, Mrs. Helmer. Absolutely nothing more.
Be so good as to go into the study, then.
Nora.
Yes. Who was that man? A lawyer of the name of Krogstad.
Then it really was he.
Do you know the man?
I used to. Many years ago, he was a solicitor's clerk in our town.
Yes, he was.
He's greatly altered.
He made a very unhappy marriage,
He's a widower now, isn't he?
with several children.
Say he carries on various kinds of business.
Really? Well, I wouldn't know anything of the sort, but don't let's talk about this.
No, my dear fellow. I won't disturb you. I would rather go see your wife for a while. I beg your pardon. I'm afraid I'm disturbing you
No,
too.
come in. Let me introduce you. Dr. Rank, Mrs. Lynn.
I have often heard Mrs. Lynn's name mentioned here. I think I passed you on the stairs when I arrived, Mrs. Lynn.
Yes. I go up very slowly. I don't manage stairs well, Dr. Rank.
Some slight internal weakness?
I've been overworking myself.
Nothing more than that. Then I suppose you have come to town to amuse yourself with our entertainments.
I've come to look for work.
Is that a good cure for overwork?
One must live, Dr. Rank.
Yes, the general opinion seems to be that it is necessary.
Oh, come now, Dr. Rank. You know you want to live.
Certainly. However wretched I may feel, I want to prolong the agony as long as possible. All my patients are like that. And so are those who are morally diseased. One of them, in a bad case too, is at this very moment with Helmer,
Ah, whom do you mean?
a lawyer of the name of Krogstad, a fellow you don't know at all. He suffers from a diseased moral character, Mrs. Helmer. But Even he began talking of it being highly important that you should live.
Did he? Well, what did he want to see my husband about?
I have no idea. I only heard that it was something about the bank.
I didn't know this. Well, what's his name? Krogstad had anything to do with the bank.
Yes, he has some sort of position there. I don't know whether you find, also in your part of the world, that there are certain people who go zealously snuffing about to smell out moral corruption, and as soon as they have found some, puts the person concerned into some lucrative position where they can keep their eye on him. Healthy natures are let down in the cold.
Still, Dr. Rank, I think the sick are those in most need taking care of.
Yes, there you are. That is the sentiment that is turning society into a sick house. Why do you laugh at that? Have you any notion of what society really is?
Oh, what do I care about tiresome society? No, I'm laughing at something else. Something extremely amusing. Is it true, Dr. Rank, that everyone at the bank is completely dependent on Torvald now?
Is that what you find so extremely amusing?
That's my affair. It is wonderful to think that we have, well, that Torvald has so much power over so many people. Dr. Rank, what do you say to a macaroon?
Macaroons? I thought they were forbidden.
Yes, but these are some that Christine brought for me.
Oh,
well,
what?
I didn't know that they were forbidden here. I ought to tell you that Torvald is afraid they will ruin my teeth, but bah, once in a way, isn't that so, Dr. Rank? By your leave. You must have one too, Christine. And I will have one. Just a tiny one. Well, at the most two. Oh, I am tremendously happy. There is just one thing now I should dearly love to do.
Well, what is that?
Something I should dearly love to say if Torvald could hear me.
Why can't you say it?
No, I mustn't. It's so shocking. Shocking, dear.
Well, I should not advise you to say it. Still, with us, you might. What is it you would so much like to say if Torvald could hear you?
I should just like to say, well, never mind.
Are you
Nora, dear.
Say it. Here he is.
Well, Torvald, dear, have you got rid of him?
Yes, he is just gone.
Oh, let me introduce you. This is Christine, who has come to town.
Christine, excuse me, but I don't know
Mrs.
him.
Lynn, dear. Christine Lynn.
A school friend of my wife's, I presume.
Yes, we've known each other since then.
And just think, dear, she has come such a long way in order to see you.
What do you mean?
Well, really, tremendously clever at bookkeeping. And she does so want to work under some tremendously clever man so as to perfect herself.
Very sensible. Mrs. Lynn.
When she heard you had been appointed manager of the bank, the news was telegraphed, you know. She came here as quick as she could. Well, dear, you'll be able to find something for Christine to do. For my sake, won't you?
Well, it is not altogether impossible. I presume you are a widow, Mrs. Lynn,
Yes, I am.
and have had some experience at bookkeeping.
A fair amount, yes.
Well, then it's very likely I may be able to find something for you.
Well, how can I thank you?
There's no need, but you must excuse me.
Oh, wait a minute. I will come with you.
Don't be long away, Torvald, dear.
About an hour, not more.
Why are you going to, Christine?
Yes, I've got to find a room, dear.
We can walk down the street together.
It is such a shame we are so short in space here. I should have asked you to stay with
Nora,
us.
don't you think of it. Good night, dear, and thank you.
Good night for now. You will come back for dinner, of course. And you too, Dr. Ray. What do you say? If you are well enough? Well, you must be. Oh, wrap yourselves up well. There they are! There they are! Hello!
Don't let us stand here in the draft.
Come along, Mrs. Lynn. The place will only be bearable for a mother now.
Here we go. Well, what did you do out there in the snow? You did? Oh, my goodness. Was it a very big snowball?
I thought when that ball
You did? Oh, my goodness. Well, what else happened out there in the snow?
the dog chased after and
You threw a snowball at the dog chasing you. Well, that was very smart. Well, you must be freezing. Come, let's warm up by the stove. It was a blue dog. Oh, my. Well, perhaps it was a blue dog that looked Black. Well, here we are. We will stand in front of the stove and warm up. Well, now I have an idea. What do you all say to a game of hide and seek? God bless you. Yes, you all hide and I will count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, where have my children gone? Well, it is such a shame they are not here. I should dearly love some hot chocolate. Is there anyone else here who would like hot chocolate? Anne, would you like hot chocolate? Oh, you would like hot chocolate? And you. Well, come then. Let us run up to the kitchen right away and get some hot chocolate. Come now, piping hot chocolate. A nice big mug of it with some peppermint.
Excuse me, Mrs. Helmer.
What do you want?
Excuse me. The outer door was ajar. Someone must have forgot to shut it.
My husband is out, Mr. Krogstad.
I know that.
What do you want here, then?
A word with you.
Well, dears, go along in with the nurse now, and she will get your hot chocolate for you, and afterward we will have another game. You wanted to speak to me?
Yes, I do.
But it is not yet the first of the month, Mr. Krogstad.
No, it is Christmas Eve, and it will depend on yourself what sort of Christmas you will spend.
But, Mr. Krogstad, it is impossible for me to get you any
We
money.
won't get into that till later on. This is something quite different. I presume you can give me a moment?
Yes, I can, although I don't...
Good. I just saw your husband going down the street.
Yes?
With a lady.
What, then?
May I make so bold as to ask if it was a Mrs. Lynn?
Yes, it was.
She just arrived in town.
Just today.
She was a great friend of yours, wasn't she?
She is a friend of mine.
I knew her too. Once upon a time.
Yes, I know that.
You do? I thought as much. And you know all about it. Well, I guess I can ask you without beating about the bush. Is Mrs. Lynn to have an appointment at the bank?
What right have you to question me, Mr. Krogstad? You are one of my husband's subordinates. But since you ask, you shall know. Yes, Mrs. Lind is to have an appointment at the bank, and it was I who pleaded her case, Mr. Krogstad. You may know that.
I was right when I thought that.
Sometimes one has a tiny bit of influence. Because one is a woman, it does not necessarily follow. Whenever anyone is in a subordinate position, they must be very careful to avoid offending anyone
Who has influence?
Exactly.
Mrs. Helmer, you will be so good as to use your influence on my behalf.
What?
You will be so kind as to see that I keep my subordinate position at the bank.
Who proposes to take your post away from you?
Oh, there is no necessity to keep up the pretense of ignorance. I can quite understand that your friend is not very anxious to expose herself to the chance of rubbing shoulders with me. But I can understand, too, whom I have to thank for being turned off.
Krogstad, I assure you I haven't any idea what you could be speaking.
Very likely. But to come back to the point, the time has come for me to advise you to use your influence to prevent that.
Mr. Krogstad, I have no influence.
Don't you? I think you were saying yourself
But certainly
just
I
now.
don't need you to put that construction on it. What should make you think I have any influence of that sort with my husband?
Oh, I have known your husband since our student days. He is hardly any more assailable than other husbands.
Mr. Krogstad, if you should speak flippantly about my husband, I will throw you out of this house.
You are bold,
I'm not
Mrs.
afraid
Helmer.
any longer. As soon as the new year comes, we shall in a very short time be rid of the whole thing.
Listen to me, Mrs. Helmer. If necessary, I am prepared to fight for my small post at the bank, as if I were fighting for my life.
So it seems.
It wasn't only for the sake of money. Indeed, that weighs least in the matter with me. This is something different. Well, I suppose I should tell you. My position is this. You know, like everyone else, that once, many years ago, I was found guilty of an indiscretion.
I've heard something of the kind.
The matter never came to court, but every way seemed closed to me after that. So I took to the business that you know of. I had to do something, and honestly, I don't think I've been one of the worst. But now I must cut myself free from all that. My sons are growing older, and for their sake, I must win back as much respect as I can in the town. Now, this small post at the bank was like the first step up for me. And now your husband is about to kick me downstairs again into the mud.
Mr. Crockett, I assure you it is not
Then
my
it is
power.
because you haven't the will. But I have the means in which to compel you.
You don't mean that you will tell my husband I owe you money.
Suppose that I did.
It would be perfectly infamous of you. I think you could find out my secret. I think that you should find it out from you. It would put me in a horribly disagreeable position.
Only disagreeable.
Well, do it then. And it will be the worse for you. My husband will get to know what a blackguard you are, and then you certainly won't keep your post then.
I asked you, Mrs. Helmer, if it was only a disagreeable scene at home that you were afraid
My
of.
husband does get to know of it. He will at once pay you what is owing, and we shall have nothing more to do with you.
Mrs. Helmer, evidently you do not realize what it is that you have done. But let me tell you, you either have very bad memory, or you know very little about business. Therefore, I will be obliged to remind you of a few details.
What do you mean?
When your husband fell ill, you came to me to borrow $2,500.
I didn't know anyone else.
I promised to get you that amount.
And you did so.
I promised to get you that amount under certain conditions. But your mind was so taken up with your husband's illness, and you were so anxious to get on with your journey, that you paid no attention to the details of our bargain. Therefore, it will not be amiss if I remind you. Now, I promised to get you the amount on the security of a bond which I drew up.
And which I saw.
Yes, but below your signature, there were a few lines constituting your father for a surety of the bond. Do you remember that?
Yes, my father signed those lines.
I had left the date blank. That is to say, your father should have inserted the date in which he signed the bond. Do you remember that?
Yes, I think I remember.
And then I gave you the bond to send by post to your father. Is that not so?
Yes.
And you naturally did so at once, because 5 or 6 days later, you handed me the bond back with your father's signature. And then I gave you the money.
Well, haven't I been paying it off regularly?
Fairly so, yes. But to come back to the point, that was a very trying time for you, was it not, Mrs. Helmer?
Yes, indeed it was.
Your father was quite ill, was he
It was
not?
very near his end.
And he died soon afterwards?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. What day was it that your father died on? What day of the month, I mean?
Papa died on the 29th of September.
That is correct. I have ascertained it for myself. And as that is so, there is a discrepancy which I cannot account for.
What discrepancy? I don't understand.
The discrepancy consists, Mrs. Helmer, in that your father dated the signature 3 days after his death.
I don't understand.
Your father died on the 29th of September. But look here. He dated the signature on the 2nd of October. It is a discrepancy, is it not? Can you explain it to me? It's an interesting thing, too, that those words, 2nd of October, they're not written in your father's handwriting, but in one that I think that I know. Well, that can all be explained. Perhaps your father forgot to date the signature, and someone came in haphazardly behind them and dated it before they knew about his death. There is nothing wrong with that, Mrs. Helmer. It all depends on the signature itself, and that is genuine, is it not, Mrs. Helmer? It was your father who signed the bond.
No, it was not. It was I who signed Father's name.
Are you aware that it is a dangerous confession?
But wait, you shall have your money soon.
Let me ask you a question. Why did you not send the bond by post to your father?
It was impossible. If I should have asked him for a signature, I should have had to tell him what the money was to be used for. And as he was so ill himself, I could not tell him that my husband was ill as well. It was impossible.
That may be so. But it would have been better for you if you had given up your trip abroad.
No, that was impossible. That trip was to save my husband's life. I could not give that up.
Yes, but were you aware that you were committing a fraud on me?
I couldn't take you into account. I couldn't bear you at all because you put so many heartless difficulties in my way, even though you knew what a dangerous condition my husband was in.
Listen to me, Mrs. Helmer. Evidently you do not realize what it is that you have done. But I assure you that my one false move, which lost me all of my reputation, was nothing more or nothing worse than what you have done.
You. Do you ask me to believe that you would run a risk to save your wife's life?
The law cares nothing about motives, Mrs. Helmer.
a very foolish law.
Foolish or not, it is a law by which you will be judged if I produce this paper in court.
I don't believe it. Is a daughter not to be allowed to save her father anxiety and care? Is a wife not to be allowed to save her husband's life? No, I do not know very much about law, Mr. Krogstad, but I am certain there must be laws permitting such things as that. Do you not have any knowledge of such laws? You who are a lawyer. You must be a very poor lawyer, then.
Maybe. But in matters of business, such business as you and I have together, do you not think I understand that? Very well, do as you will. But know this, if I lose my position a second time, you shall lose yours with me.
Is he gone? Can we play another game?
No, we cannot play another game. Go in with the nurse now.
Oh, what are you
I said go in with the nurse now. Helen, bring the tree in.
Shall I put it in the same place as usual?
Yes, thank you. It is a lovely tree.
Most certainly.
Will you bring in the rest of the ornaments, please?
Yes. Shall I get you anything else?
No, thank you. I have all I want. Oh, are you back already?
Yes. Has anyone been here?
Here? No.
That is strange. Saw Krogstad going out of the gate.
Oh, yes. Well, I forgot. Krogstad was here for a moment.
Nora, I can tell from your manner that he has been here begging you to say a good word for him.
Yes.
And you were to appear to do this of your own accord. Didn't he beg that of you too?
Yes, Torvald, but really
Nora? Nora, and you would be party to that sort of thing? To talk with a man like that and give him any sort of promise? And to tell me a lie into the bargain?
Why?
Didn't you tell me no one had been here? My little songbird must never do that again. A songbird must have a clean beak to chirp with, no false notes. That is so, isn't it? Yes, I am sure it is. We will speak no more about it. How warm and snug it is here.
Torvald,
Yes?
I'm looking tremendously forward to the fancy dress ball at the Stenborg the evening after tomorrow.
And I'm tremendously curious to see what you're going to surprise me with.
Oh, it was very silly of me to want to do that.
What do you mean?
I can't hit upon anything that will do. Everything I think of seems so silly and insignificant.
Does my little Nora acknowledge that at last?
Are you very busy, Torvald?
Well,
What are all those papers?
bank business.
Already?
Yes. I've just received authority from the retiring manager to undertake the necessary changes in the staff and the rearrangement of the workload. And I will make use of the Christmas week for that, so as to have everything ready for the new year.
Well, if you were not so busy, I should have asked you for a tremendously big favor, Torvald.
What is that? Tell me.
Well, there is no one has such good taste as you. And I do so want to look nice at the fancy dress ball. Couldn't you take me in hand and decide what I shall go as and what sort of dress I shall wear?
Uh-huh. So my obstinate little woman is obliged for someone to come to her rescue.
I can't get along a bit without you to help me.
Very well. I shall think it over. We shall manage to hit upon something.
It is nice of you. How pretty the red flowers look. But tell me, dear, was it something very bad that this Krogstad was guilty of?
He forged someone's name. Have you any idea what that means?
Isn't it possible that he was driven to do so by necessity?
Yes. Or is it in many cases by imprudence? I'm not so heartless to condemn a man altogether because of a single false step of that kind.
No, you wouldn't, would you?
Many a man has been able to retrieve his character once he has openly confessed his fault and taken his punishment.
Punishment?
But Krogstad did nothing of the sort. He got himself out of it by a cunning trick, and that is why I say he has gone under altogether.
But wouldn't it matter?
Just think how a guilty man like that has to lie and play the hypocrite with everyone. How he has to wear a mask in the presence of those near and dear to him. And especially before his wife and children, Nora. That's the most terrible part of it all, the children.
How?
Because such an atmosphere of lies poisons and infects the entire life of a home. Every breath the children take in is full of the germs of evil.
Are you sure of that?
My dear Nora, I've often seen it in the course of my life as a lawyer. Anyone who has gone to the bad early in life has had a deceitful mother.
Why do you only say mother?
Because most commonly is the mother's influence, though naturally a bad father would have the same result. Every lawyer is familiar with the fact. Now, this Krogstad has been persistently poisoning his children with lies and dissimulation, and that is why I say he has lost all moral character. And that is why my sweet little Nora must promise me not to plead his cause. Now, give me your hand on it. Come, come, what is this? Give me your hand. There now, that's settled. I assure you, it would be quite painful for me to work with Krogstad. I literally feel physically ill in the presence of such people.
There now, it is burning up. And I have such a lot of work to do.
Yes, and I must try and read through some of these before dinner. I also must think upon your costume, too. And it is very likely I may have something in gold paper to hang upon the tree. My precious little singing bird.
The children are begging so hard to let them know their mama.
You go into this, Anne.
Very well, ma'am.
Poison my home. Deprave my little children. It isn't true. Can it possibly be true?
At last I have found the box with the fancy dress.
Then you put it on the table.
But it is very much in want of mending.
I should like to tear it into 100,000 pieces.
What an idea. It can easily be put to order, just a little patience.
I will just go and get Mrs. Lynn to help me with it.
Out again, in this horrible weather, you will catch cold, ma'am, and make yourself ill.
But worse than that might happen. How are the children?
The poor little souls are playing with their Christmas.
Do they ask much for me?
And you see, they are so accustomed to having their mom with them.
Yes. And I shall not be able to be as much with him as I was before.
Well, young children usually get accustomed to anything.
Do you really believe that? Do you think they would forget their mother if she went away altogether?
Oh, good heavens, went away altogether.
And there's something I've often wanted to ask you. How is it you could be willing to turn your own child out among strangers?
I was obliged to. I wanted to be little Nora's nurse.
How could you be willing to do it?
When I got such a good place by it, a poor girl who got into trouble should be glad to. Besides, that wicked man didn't do a single thing for me.
Well, I'm sure your daughter has quite forgotten you.
No, indeed she hasn't. She wrote to me when she was confirmed, and then she was married.
Little Anne, you were a good mother to me when I was little.
Little Nora, poor dear, had no other mother to me.
If my children had no other mother, then I'm certain you... Talking nonsense, Anne. Will you go into it now, and we'll see tomorrow how charming I shall look.
I'm sure there'll be no one at the ball so charming as you, Anne.
Christine? Oh, it is only you. There was no one else there.
I heard you were up asking for me, dear.
Oh, yes, I was. There's something you must help me with. You see, tomorrow evening there is to be a dress ball at the Stenborg to live above us. Torvald wants me to go and dance the tango.
I see. You're going to keep up the character.
Yes. Torvald wants me to. Well, here's the dress. It is also torn, and I haven't
We'll
any
easily put that to right, dear. It's only wanted some needling. Do you have any needle and thread?
It isn't the dress.
That's all we want, dear.
It is nice of you.
All right, you're going to be dressed up tomorrow, and I tell you what, I'll come in tomorrow and I'll see you in your fine feathers. But I completely forgot to thank you for the delightful evening yesterday.
I don't think yesterday was as pleasant as usual. You ought to have come to town earlier, Christine. Certainly Torvald does know how to make a house dainty and
And
attractive.
so do you, I should think. You're not your father's daughter for nothing. But tell me, dear, is Dr. Rank always as depressed as he was yesterday?
No. Yesterday it was very noticeable. I ought to tell you that he suffers from a very dangerous disease. He has consumption of the spine, poor creature. You see, his father was a horrible man who committed all sorts of excesses, and so his son was sickly from childhood. Do you understand?
Yes, I do, but Nora, how would you know anything of the sort?
Oh, well, when anyone has 3 children, you get visits now and then from married women who know a thing or two about medical matters, and they talk about one thing and another.
Does Dr. Rank come here every day?
Yes, every day regularly. He is Torvald's most intimate friend, and a friend of mine, too. He is just like one of the family.
Nora, is he perfectly sincere? He seems like the sort of man who would be very anxious to make himself agreeable.
Oh, no, not in the least. What would make you think that?
You introduced him to me yesterday. He said that he had often heard my name mentioned in this house, but afterward, when I met your husband, he said that
Oh,
he had
well,
never...
yes. Well, that can be easily explained. Torvald is so absurdly fond of me. He wants me so absolutely to himself, as he says. Well, at first, when I would mention the dear friends at home, he seemed almost jealous, so naturally I stopped doing so. And I often talk about those things with Dr. Rank, because he likes hearing them.
Listen to me, Nora. You're still very like a child in many things, and I am older than you in many ways, and have a little bit more experience. But let me tell you this. You ought to make an end of it with Dr. Rank.
What ought I to make an end of?
Of 2 things, I think. Yesterday he made some mention of a rich admirer who's to leave you
Oh,
money.
rich admirer who doesn't exist, unfortunately. But what then?
Is Dr. Rank a man of means?
Yes, he is.
And has no one to provide for.
Oh, no,
And
no
comes
one.
here every day.
Yes, I told you so.
How can this well-bred man be so tactless?
I don't understand you at all.
Don't prevaricate. Don't you suppose I guessed who gave you the $2,500?
Out of your senses. A friend of ours who comes here every day.
Do not understand what a horribly painful position that would be. Then it really wasn't he?
No, certainly not. Never would have entered into my head for a moment to ask Dr. Rank. Besides, he had no money to lend him. He came into his money afterward.
Well, I think that's very lucky for you, Nora.
No, it never would have entered into my head for a moment to ask Dr. Rank. But I am quite sure that if I had asked him...
Oh, but of course you won't.
Of course not. I haven't any reason to believe it could possibly be necessary. But I am quite sure that if I told Dr. Rank...
Behind your husband's back?
I could make an end of it with the other one too, and that would be behind his back as well.
Yes, that's what I told you yesterday.
Man can't put a thing like that straight. Much
One's
easier than
husband,
this.
yes.
No. When you pay off a debt, you get your bond back, don't you?
As a matter of course, yes.
You can tear it into 100,000 pieces. and that can
Where's
be
my little
something.
skyline?
Here's Torvald come home. Do you mind going into the children at present? Torvald can't bear to see dressmaking going on. Let Anne help you.
Certainly, but I'm not leaving until we've had this out, Nora.
Of course. I've wanted you so much, Torvald, dear.
Was that the dressmaker?
Oh, no, that was Christine. But she is helping me put my dress in order. You will see tomorrow how smart I shall look.
Wasn't that a happy thought of mine now?
Splendid. But don't you think it was nice of me, too, to do as you wish?
Nice. Because you do as your husband wishes. Well, well, you little rogue. I'm sure you did not mean it that way. But I'm not going to disturb you. You want to be trying on your dress, I expect?
Suppose you are going to work.
Yes, I have just been into the bank.
Torvald,
Yes.
if your squirrel were to ask you for something very prettily,
What then?
would you do it?
I should like to hear what it is
The
first.
squirrel would run about and do all her tricks for you if you would just be nice and do what she asked.
Speak plainly.
Your skylark would chirp, chirp about in every room with her song rising and
Well,
falling.
my skylark does that anyhow.
Play fairy and dance for you in the moonlight, Torvald.
Nora, surely you don't mean that request you made of me this morning.
Oh, dear, I beg you most earnestly.
Have you really the courage to open up that question again?
Oh, yes, dear. You must do as I suggest. You must let Krogstad keep its post at the bank.
My dear Nora, it is his post I've arranged Mrs. Lynde shall have.
Yes. You've been very kind about that. But couldn't you just as easily dismiss some other clerk instead of Krogstad?
This is simply incredible obstinacy. Because you chose to give him a thoughtless promise that you would plead
No,
his
it
case,
isn't that at all, dear. This man writes for the most scurrilous newspapers. And do you an unspeakable amount of harm and frighten to death of me.
Huh. It is recollections of the past that scare you.
What do you mean?
Naturally, you're thinking of your father.
Yes. Just recall to your mind what these malicious creatures did to Papa. How they slandered him. I believe they would have procured his dismissal if the department had not sent you over. If you had not been so kindly disposed and helpful to him.
My dear Nora, there's an important difference between your father and me. Your father's reputation as a public official was not above suspicion. Mine is, and I hope it will continue to be so as long as I hold office.
Oh, yes, but you never can tell what mischief these men may contrive. We ought to be so snug here. So happy here in our peaceful home. You and I and the children. And that's why I beg you most urgently.
And it is just by interceding for him that you make it impossible for me to keep him. It is already well known at the bank that I mean to dismiss Krogstad. Is it to get about now that the new manager has changed his mind at his wife's bidding?
Well, what if it did?
Of course. If only this obstinate little person could have her way. Do you suppose that I'm going to make myself ridiculous before my entire staff to let people think I'm a man to be swayed by all sorts of outside influences? I should very soon feel the consequences of it, I can tell you. Besides, there's one thing that makes it quite impossible for me to have Krogstad in the bank while I'm manager.
What is that?
His moral failings I might perhaps have overlooked if necessary.
You could, couldn't you?
And I hear he's a good worker too, but we knew each other when we were boys. It was one of those rash friendships that so often proves an incubus in the afterlife. I may very well tell you plainly we were very good friends. But this tactless fellow lays no restraint on himself when other people are present. On the contrary, he thinks it gives him the right to adopt a familiar tone with me. It is always, I say, Helmer, old fellow, and that sort of thing. I assure you, could not stand working with Krogstad. He would make my position most intolerable.
Well, Torvald, I don't believe you mean that.
Don't you? Why not?
Because it is such a narrow-minded way of looking at things.
What are you saying? Narrow-minded. Do you think I am narrow-minded?
No, you're just the opposite. And
It's the same thing. You think my point of view is narrow-minded, and so I must be so too.
Oh, dear.
Very well. Narrow-minded.
What are you going to do?
Settle this. Helen? Take this downstairs. Give it to the messenger. Tell him to deliver it and be quick. The address is on it. Here's the money.
Very well, sir.
Now then, little Miss Obstinate.
Torvald, what was that letter?
Krogstad's dismissal.
We'll call her back. Torvald, please call her back. There is still time. Do it for my sake. Do it for your own sake, for the children's sake. Oh, Torvald, please call her back. You don't know what that letter could bring upon us.
It's too late.
It is too late.
My dear Nora, I can forgive this anxiety you are in, though really it is an insult to me. It is. Isn't it an insult to think that I should be afraid of a starving clerk's vengeance? But I forgive you, because it is such great eloquent witness to your love for me. You shall see that I shall have the abilities if they be needed. You shall see that I shall be man enough to take everything upon myself.
What do you mean by that?
Everything I say.
You'll never have to do that.
That's right, Nora. We shall share it, as man and wife should. There. Not these frightened dove's eyes. The whole thing is only the wildest fancy. Now, you go and practice through your dance. I'll be in the inner office, I will shut the door, and I will not hear a thing. You can make as much noise as you please. And when Rank comes in, tell him where he'll find me.
Good day, Dr. Ray. I knew your ring. But you mustn't go into Torvald just now. I think he is busy with something.
And you?
You know, I always have time for you.
Thank you. I shall make use of as much of it as I can.
What do you mean by that? As much of it as you can.
Well, does that alarm you?
It was just such a strange way of putting it. Is anything likely to happen?
Nothing but what I have long been prepared for. But certainly is not expected to happen so soon.
What have you found out? You must tell me.
It's all up with me. And it can't be helped.
Is it about yourself?
Who else? There is no use lying to oneself. I am the most wretched of all my patients, Mrs. Helmer. Lately, I have been taking stock of my internal economy. Bankrupt. Within a month, I shall lie rotting in a churchyard.
It's an ugly thing to say.
The thing itself is cursedly ugly. And the worst of it is that I shall have to face so much more that is ugly before that. I shall only make one more examination of myself. And when I have done that, I shall know pretty certainly when it will be that the horrors of dissolution will begin. There is something I want to tell you. Helmer's refined nature gives him an unconquerable disgust at everything that is ugly. I won't have him in my sick room.
Dr.
I won't have him there. Not on any account. I bar my doors to him. As soon as I am quite certain that the worst has come, I shall send you my card with the black cross on it.
And then you shall know that the loathsome end has begun.
Well, you are quite absurd today. And I so wanted you to be in a really good humor.
With death stalking beside me, to have to pay the penalty for another man's sin. Where is the justice in that? And yet, in every family, in one way or another, some such inexorable retribution is being exacted.
Rubbish. Do talk of something cheerful.
Oh, it's a mere laughing matter. The whole thing. My poor, innocent spine has to suffer for my father's youthful amusements.
You mean, don't you, that he was too fond of asparagus and foie gras, don't you?
Yes. And to truffles.
Truffles, well, of course. And to oysters, too, I suppose.
Oysters? Of course. That goes without saying.
Heaps of port and champagne. Well, it is a shame that all these nice things should take their revenge on our bones.
Especially that they should revenge themselves on the unlucky bones of those who have not had the satisfaction of enjoying them.
Yes, that is the saddest part of all. Well, why did you smile?
No, it was you that laughed.
It's you that smiled, Dr. Rain.
You are a greater rascal than I thought.
I'm in a silly mood today.
So it seems.
Here, Dr. Rain. That mustn't take you away from Torvald and me.
It is a loss you would easily recover from. Those who are gone are soon forgotten.
You really believe that?
People form new ties,
People
and
form
then
new ties.
both you and Homer, when I am gone. You yourself are already on the high road to it, I think. What did that, Mrs. Lynde want here last night?
Oh, you don't mean to tell me that you are jealous of poor Christine?
Yes, I am. She will be my successor in this house. When I am gone, she
now
will take...
she's in that room there.
Today again? There, you see?
You are being quite absurd. She is only helping me mend my dress. Now, you sit down, and tomorrow you will see how beautifully I shall dance. And you may imagine I am doing it all for you. And for Torvald, too, of course. But Dr. Rank, I want to show you something.
What is that?
Just look at those.
Silk stockings.
Flesh-colored, aren't they lovely? Well, you can't see just... Oh, no, Dr. Ray. You must only look at the feet. All right, you may have a look at the legs, too. Why are you looking so critical? Don't you think they will fit me?
I have no means of forming an opinion on that.
For shame! That's to punish you.
And what other nice things am I to be allowed to see?
Not a single thing more for being so naughty.
When I'm here with you, talking as intimately as this, I cannot imagine for a moment what would have become of me if I had never come into this house.
I believe you do feel thoroughly at home with us.
And to be obliged to leave it all,
Nonsense. You are not going to leave
and
it.
not be able to leave behind one the slightest token of one's gratitude. Scarcely even a fleeting regret. Nothing but an empty place that the first comer can fill as well as any other.
And if I were to ask you now,
For what?
for big proof of your friendship,
Yes, yes.
I mean a tremendously big favor.
Would you really make me so happy for
But
once?
you don't know what it is yet.
No. But tell me.
I really can't, Dr. Rank. It is something outside of all reason. It means advice and help and a really big
The
favor.
bigger a thing it is, the better. I cannot conceive what it is you mean. Do tell me. Haven't I your confidence?
More than anyone else. Dr. Rank. I know that you are my truest and best friend. So I will tell you what it is. You know how devotedly, how inexpressibly deeply Torvald loves me. He would never for a moment hesitate to give his life for me.
Nora, do you think he is the only one?
The only one.
The only one who would gladly give his life for your sake?
Is that it?
I was determined you should know it before I went away. And there would never be a better opportunity than this. Now you know it, Nora. And now you know, too, that you can trust me, as you would trust no one else.
Let me pass.
Nora,
Dr. Rank, that was really horrid of you.
to have loved you as much as anyone else does? Was that horrid?
No. To go and tell me so. There really was no need.
What do you mean? Did you know? Nora, did you...
Excuse me, Miss. Miss Lynn requests the dress box. Yes.
Mrs. Helmer, had you any idea of this?
How do I know whether I had or whether I hadn't? I really can't tell you. But to think you could be so clumsy, Dr. Rank. We were getting along so nicely.
Well, at all events, you know you can command me body and soul, so won't you speak out?
After what happened,
I bet you'd let me know what it is.
I can't tell you anything now.
Yes. Yes, but you mustn't punish me in that way. Let me have permission to do for you whatever a man may do.
You do nothing for me now. Besides, I really don't need any help at all. You'll see that the whole thing was merely fancy on my part. It really is so. Of course it is. You are a nice sort of man, Dr. Rank. Don't you feel ashamed of yourself now?
Not a bit. But perhaps I'd better go. Forever.
No, of course not. You will come here every day just as before. You know very well that Torvald cannot do without you.
Yes. But you?
Well, you know I am always tremendously pleased when you come.
It is just that put me on the wrong track. You are a riddle to me. I've often thought you would just as soon be in my company as in Helmer's.
Well, yes. You see, Dr. Rank, there are some people whom one loves best, and then there are others whom one would almost always rather have as companions.
Yes, there is something in that.
When I lived with Papa, of course I loved him best. But I always thought it tremendous fun if I could steal down to the maids' room, because they never moralized at all, and they always talked about such entertaining things.
I see. It is their place I have taken.
Dr. Rank, I didn't mean that at all. Certainly you can understand that living with Torvald is a little like living with Papa. If you please, ma'am.
Is there something wrong?
No, this is my dress.
Mrs. Lynn has your dress.
Yes. No, this is another one. Torvald mustn't know anything about it.
Oh, then that was the great secret.
Yes. Well, of course. He is in his study. Go into him now and keep him as long as
Make
you
your
want.
mind easy. I won't let him escape.
He's standing waiting in the kitchen.
Yes, he came up the back stairs.
Didn't you tell him no one was in?
Yes, but it was no good.
Well, let him come in. But quietly, Helen. It is a surprise for my husband.
Yes, ma'am. I quite understand.
Speak low. My husband is at home.
No matter about that.
What do you want, Mr. Krogstad?
An explanation of something.
Make haste, then. What is it?
You know, I suppose, that I have got my dismissal.
I couldn't prevent it, Mr. Krogstad. I fought as hard as I could on your side, but it was no good.
Does your husband love you so little then? He knows what I can expose him to, and yet
How
he
can you
still
suppose
ventures.
he has any knowledge of the sort?
I didn't suppose so at all. It wouldn't be the least like our dear Torvald Helmer, to show so much courage.
Got a little respect for my husband.
Certainly, all the respect he deserves. But since you have kept this matter so carefully to yourself, I make bold to suppose that you have a little bit better idea than what you had yesterday of what exactly it is that you have done.
More than you could teach me.
Yes, such a bad lawyer as I am.
What is it you want, Mr. Krogstad?
I only wanted to see how you were, Mrs. Helmer. I have been thinking only about you all day long. Why, a cashier, a clerk, well, a man like me. You don't even think he has a little what's called feeling, you know?
Show it then. Think of my children.
Have you and your husband thought about mine? But never mind about that. I only wanted to tell you that you need not take this matter too seriously. In the first place, there will be no accusation made on my part.
No, of course not.
The whole thing can be arranged amicably. It need only remain a secret between us three.
My husband must not get to know anything about it.
Oh, am I to suppose that you can pay the balance that is owing?
No, not just at present.
Or maybe you have some expedient of which to raise the funds?
No expedient I mean to make use of.
Well, it wouldn't matter anyway, now would it? If you were to stand there with ever so much money, I would never part with your bond.
What use do you mean to put it to?
I only want to keep it in my possession, to keep it close at hand. There's no reason that anyone who isn't concerned in the matter should have the slightest hint of it. It need only remain a secret between those who are concerned. And I did want to keep it, just in case the matter has driven you to any desperate resolutions.
Have?
If you had thought about running away from home,
I had.
or maybe something
How could
worse.
you know that?
Give up the idea.
Do you know that I had thought of that?
We all think of that, at first. I did too, but I haven't the courage.
No, no more than I.
No, that's it, isn't it? You haven't the courage.
No, I haven't.
Oh, besides, it would have been a great piece of folly. Once the first storm at home is over, I have a letter for your husband in my pocket.
Telling him everything.
In as lenient a manner as I possibly could.
Tear it up, Mr. Krogstad. I will find some
Oh,
meaning.
but I think I was telling you just
You're
now.
not speaking of the sum I owe you. Tell me how much you are asking my husband for. I will get it for you.
I am not asking him for a single penny.
What is it you want then?
I will tell you. I want to rehabilitate myself, Mrs. Helmer. I want to get on. And that your husband must help me. For the past year and a half, I have not had a hand in anything dishonorable. In all that time, I have been content to work my way up, step by step, in the most restricted of circumstances. And now I am turned out, and I will not be content with merely being taken back into favor again. I want to get on. I want to get back into the bank, in a higher position, and in that your husband must make a place for me.
That he will never.
He will! I know him. He must. And once I am back into the bank again, then you will see. Within a year, I will be the manager's right hand. And it will be Nils Krogstad, and not Torvald Helmer who manages the bank.
That is a thing you will never see.
What do you mean that you
I have courage enough for it now.
Oh, you cannot frighten me. A fine spoiled lady like
You
you.
will see. You will see.
All right. Under the ice, perhaps. Down into the cold black water. In the spring, to float up to the surface, all horrible and unrecognizable, with your hair falling out.
Frighten me, Mr. Krogstad.
Nor can you frighten me. People do not do such things. Besides, I should have them in my power just the same.
Mr. Rubin, I am no longer here, you will.
Have you forgotten who it is that has the keeping of your reputation? Do not do anything foolish. And when your husband has received my letter, I will expect a message back from him. And don't forget who it is that has driven me to such desperate resolutions once again. I will never forgive your husband for that. Good day, Mrs. Helmer.
There, I can't see anything more to mend now. Do you want to try it on? Here. See that letter there? You can see it lying there in the box. Yes, I see it.
That was a letter from Krogstad.
Nora. It was Krogstad who gave you the money.
Now Torvald will know all about it.
Nora, that is the best thing for both of you.
Don't know all. I forged a name.
What? Good heavens.
I only want to say this to you, Christine. You must be my witness. I should go out of my mind, and it might easily happen. Or if anything else
Nora.
happens, it might prevent my being here. Or if anyone else wants to come forward and wants to take the blame.
Nora, you're quite out of your mind, dear.
No. No, I am not out of my mind. I am in my right senses now, and you must be my witness, Christine, that it is not true. It was I alone who did the whole thing. Please remember that.
I will, but I still don't understand all this, Nora.
There is no need you should. A wonderful thing is going to happen.
A wonderful thing?
A wonderful thing. It's so awful, Christine. It must not happen. Not for all the world.
I will go at once and see Krogstad.
You must not do that. He will do you some harm.
It was once that he would do anything for my sake. Where does he live?
I have the card. The letter, Christine, the letter.
Nora!
What do you want?
Don't be frightened, we're not coming in. Are you trying on your dress?
Yes. Yes, that is it, dear. You will see how nice I shall look.
I see he lives at the corner here.
But it is no use. The letter is lying there and locked.
Her husband keeps the key.
Always.
He has to ask for his letter back unread, Nora. He has to have some
At this time, Miss Torvald generally
You
comes
need to go to him. Delay him. Do something. I'll be back as soon as I can. Nora, trust me.
Come on, Frank. Now you will see how beautiful my... But what is this?
Is what, dear?
Frank led me to expect a splendid transformation.
I understood so, but evidently I was mistaken.
Well, no one is to see me in my dress until tomorrow evening.
But Nora, you look so worn out. Have you been practicing too much?
I have not practiced at all.
But you'll need to be practicing in
Yes,
order
dear, I
to be
will.
ready.
But I can't get along a bit without your help. I have absolutely forgotten the whole thing.
We will soon work it up again.
Help me, Torvald. Promise me that you will. I am so frightened of it. All the people. You must devote yourself entirely to me this evening. You mustn't even take a pin in your hand. Will you promise me that?
I promise. This evening I will be wholly and absolutely at your service. But first things first.
What are you going to do?
Only see if any letters have come.
No, don't do that.
Why not?
There's nothing there.
Well, just let me look.
I can't practice if you don't help me.
I'm really that afraid of it, dear.
I'm terrified of it. Let us practice now. There's time before we go to dinner. Play the music for us, and you may criticize me as we dance.
Great pleasure if you wish me to. Slower, Nora.
Let's do it any other way.
Not so violently, Nora. That is not a bit right at all.
I tell you so.
Let's start over.
I'll handle the music.
Thank you.
Oh, my.
Fun, Christine.
Darling Nora, you're dancing as if your very life depended on it.
Oh, it does.
Stop the music, Frank. This is your madness. I never believed that you've forgotten everything.
I tell you so.
You want a lot of
You
coaching.
see how much I need it, dear. You must coach me up until the last second. You mustn't think of a single thing but me, either tonight or tomorrow. You mustn't open a single letter, not even open the box.
Nora, I can tell from your looks that there is a letter from him lying there.
Well, I don't know. I think there is, but you mustn't think of anything of that kind. Nothing horrible must come between us until all this is over.
Torvald, you mustn't contradict her.
The child shall have her way. But tomorrow night, after you have danced...
Then you will be free. Dinner is served, ma'am. Yes, we will have champagne, Helen.
Hello, are we going to have a banquet?
A champagne banquet until the small hours. And a few macaroons, Helen. Lots. Just for once.
Come, don't be so wild and nervous. Be my little skylark as you used.
Yes, I will, dear. But you go on in now. And you too, Dr. Rank. Christine, you must help me fix my hair.
I suppose there is nothing. He is not expecting anything.
Far from it, my dear fellow. It is simply this childish nervousness I was telling you of earlier.
Well, he's gone out of town. I could tell from your face. Nora, I left a note for him. He'll be back tomorrow. You must prevent nothing, Christine. After all, it is splendid to be waiting for a wonderful thing to happen. Well, what are you waiting for? You wouldn't understand. You must go in now. I will only be a moment. All right.
Where's my little skylark?
Here she is.